time to jump into the spoilers. And again, the way I want to kind of handle this, Amanda alluded to it, is kind of broken into chapters without intentionally putting act one or whatever the case may be, but we can kind of summarize it in that form. So with that, Amanda, getting into our spoiler discussion with Beau Is Afraid and opening up the conversation with meeting Beau, born into this world, and immediately it's very disjointing. You're kind of disoriented. You're like, what exactly is going on? I realize Beau is coming out and is being born into the world, and it's pretty normal. Some kids don't come out crying. Some kids come out screaming at the top of their lungs, but Beau is just very quiet and silent, and you can hear the mom, Mona, who we'll talk about here in a second, just immediately very concerned mother. She is just Cloud, this is DEFCON 20. She is on another level as far as just having anxiety about her child and all that stuff. So immediately you kind of get a sense of who Mona is going to potentially be. And as we're pivoting over to meeting Beau, we fast forward to him in his middle age, meeting his therapist. And again, the conversation is constantly brought up. Him and his mother's relationship. How is you and your mother's relationship? And we have the actor Steven, who I love. I think he's great. I would love for him to be a therapist of mine or be a life coach. I just think that guy's just an awesome individual, even though he has a bit of a twist that I've never seen him do in film before, being kind of a bad guy, if you want to call him that. But Amanda, meeting Beau immediately within the first 10 to 15 minutes, what was your impressions on this kind of intro to this character?
I love the opening. Literally, I think is the most tasteful birthing scene that I have witnessed recently.
Yeah.
So that's, it's fine. As you were describing it, I was thinking back, and it kind of shows Beau in how he approaches life with people around him, where if he's provoked, he'll speak or he'll act on something, or else he just lives life as normal as he possibly can. He's an avoidant. Like, he avoids as much as he can unless someone kind of speaks to him or holds him by the hand. So I found that really interesting, how within like the first moments of meeting him, we get that after. This is like in hindsight, after you've watched everything, that opening really does show that. But I think that the whole tie to the mother, I understand what he was trying to do. And, we have that parent kid, obviously, attachment, the anxiety of trying to raise someone, properly. So I think that the parent child relationship causes us like so much for Beau, that he tries to do his best to please his mother constantly, because his mother was anxious to parent him properly at the same time. So it works like hand in hand, but you don't see that as a child, I think. So that's what he was struggling with. And then I'll touch upon that like later on, because I have some more thoughts about it. But I think that Joaquin Phoenix played the first couple of moments quite well. I love that therapy session to set up the issues that he does have. It's very subtle. It's simple, but more importantly, Ari Aster sets up the environment, which affects him greatly, on top of the anxiety that he already has with his attachment to his mom. So I thought the opening to get to know him was strong.
I agree. Kolby, man, your thoughts on this opening sequence? And as Amanda alluded to, there's subtle hints that leads into like little Easter eggs. You have the therapist giving him the new medication and take it with water. If not, you might have some hallucinations going on. But also within this conversation, therapist, which is a weird question to ask someone, do you ever wish your mother was dead? Which I think kind of plants the seed to this whole journey of Mona and her manipulation of her son, and if it is conditional versus unconditional love, and that whole conversation there. But Kolby, your thoughts on just kind of being introduced to him, the birth scene, the therapist scene? Was there things that you took away from those moments of like getting to meet our main character, Beau?
Yeah, I'll completely parrot what Amanda said. This is one of the greater birth scenes that we've seen in a short
Especially
while.
From Ari Asher. I was expecting blood and guts and just the most grotesque stuff, but
But then we quickly we come from there into like Grand Theft Auto. I was like, what is going on?
Oh man,
and this is the thing, because we immediately, and it was such a hard thing. Like, quickly, Kolby rules of how I critique film. Right? Do I believe in this world? That is my first objective when I'm looking at a movie, and I'm like, I guess I have to, but I have absolutely no idea how do I distinguish reality from what is surreal. And it feels the entirety of everything is surreal, but then there's something that's a very real dialogue that's implanted that we should stick on to, and that's that deliverance about the medication. So I'm like, okay, was everything up there real? And then do we show this break in reality? Because I think it's very evident that the way that Beau perceives the world is greatly impressed upon him by his mother's just the trauma that has been inflicted by him.
Yep.
Right? Yep. Where he magnifies everything that could what if be bad
to
is
the
there.
Highest level. Yep.
I mean, outside of his window is, like I said, a really bad Grand Theft Auto game. There's a corpse that is like that's been rotting for it's so weird. I'm just like, you know, and I'm looking at cops and I'm looking at this and I'm like, we're in for it. But I was so locked in. I'm like, all right, let's go. So the entirety of this first act really did keep me glued, keep me invested, and I was all the way with it. I had empathy for this character. I believed his goal was clearly stated. He had a trip to get to his mom. It's very sweet. And unfortunately, he's not able to get to his mom, and he feels very upset about that and very guilty about what happens going forward.
Yep. And I mean, this is a perfect segue into that. Once we kind of break the tension and meet the character, and you alluded to it, Kolby, and tossing to you, Amanda, when we get to this Grand Theft Auto Gotham City, as we kind of get into the actual story of it all, he's taking the pill. He goes in his apartment. We see how terrible it is. He has to literally run home whenever he goes home to avoid Mr. Tattoo Man that he's afraid of. He goes upstairs. He, calls it a night.
I've never seen Joaquin move so fast, bro.
Bro, he was hitting.
He was bucking it.
I mean, he was straight up,
he was Olympic style, Tom Cruise, man.
Bro, I know.
Man, could you imagine that would be a pretty terrible every day-to-day life is running for your life with your house. But he has this moment, Amanda, where he's trying to go to bed. And again, we see that he doesn't like conflict. His neighbors are putting these weird notes under his door and playing the music all loud. He oversleeps. And this is where he calls his mom, Amanda. And this is where we kind of get the sense of, oh, there's some dysfunctional toxicity going on in the relationship because she's gaslighting him. She's like, she's super excited. Oh, I can't wait, mom. And he tells him the whole story. His bag is taken. His keys are taken, it seems to be pretty intentional, part of her whole situation. And you can, the silence from Mona processes it, right? Or at least gives him the chance to say, okay, I'm going to still make it work, mom. And he kind of does, kind of doesn't. But just your thoughts, man, on this whole crescendo of just craziness, nonsense, but more importantly, that conversation and when Mona's disappointed by Beau not making it out there.
I thought that was so effective because you're introduced to his mother through that one conversation.
Yep.
So you see him overthinking and overanalyzing her response that she didn't even give him, speaking of the silence that you said. So you see him start to spiral. And it's just a phone call like that takes a lot, even again, like Joaquin's performance. So I thought the introduction to the mother after the therapy session in that particular case worked so well. And again, these are like small moments that add up to so much that does work in this film. But I think just seeing him struggling with every little aspect of his life, and then he's more traumatized by that one phone call with his mother because he doesn't know how to handle that response. But he knows that he can run home back into his apartment. He knows that he can lock his door. He has control over his own life away from her. So just interesting how he approached those two things. And that phone call was just, I had people laughing.
Awkward. Yeah.
I had people laugh. It's such an awkward conversation.
Yeah.
So I had
because I had that conversation with my mother 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I had that conversation with my many times. Yeah,
it's a very real thing, and I always got to tell my mother because I'm like, yo, mom, I am too healed for this. Okay, like I will call out your gas. Like I said, I'll tell her, Kathy, you need to stop. All right, what you're doing is not correct. I've not done this, but like that was when Kolby was afraid when he was like in middle school, right? Like, yo, I've got divorced. I'm the king of this shit now. I know how to battle this stuff, mom. But it sucks seeing somebody who is. I think that is a very real conversation that a lot of people have had, with their parents. And this shows generational differences are how we inflict and we impose our wills onto our kids. And it's just reinforced to me the ways that I talk to my daughter and just will not do those things. So like I was completely convinced and I was sold on the world and the character at that point. Yeah. And then everything that happens afterwards, I'm like, okay, I get where we're going. I'm locked in and now I'm convinced. Oh, by the way, there's somebody hiding on your ceiling while you're taking a bath with your big balls hanging out.
You talk about being afraid. That's a
Like,
you know, a nightmare. Someone's in your house, under your bed, on top of your ceiling. But there's one thing, and I want to talk to you, Amanda. There's something that Kolby said that I think is very resonant as far as that relatability, that groundedness that the film tries to play in when it breaks reality and gets back. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, you tweeted you wish they would have kept the original title, which the original title of this film is supposed to be Disappointment Boulevard. And I think something that we can all relate to is we never want to disappoint our parents. We always want to make them proud. So going back to that conversation, he doesn't want to disappoint his mom. He wants to make her happy. He wants to visit her and not have all these crazy stuff interfere with that. So Amanda, just your thoughts on just, again, that relatability factor, and then pivoting over to the anxiety levels of someone being hiding on your wall and the brown recluse, you know, going around the apartment and being on the guy's face. I mean, that scene alone was just the big balls, which we'll talk about later. But Amanda, your thoughts on that disappointment aspect, as well as just the anxiety that we continue to go on with Beau in this apartment building.
I do understand that, like, there is a level where it is grounded, like we just said with the conversations, and it could be heightened within the atmosphere. And I think that's what they were trying to give off. But sometimes it was too excessive and it lost me. And we'll get into that even with like the second act of this too. It's just the fact that, like, once you lose that, it's hard to like pull it back in. You know, I think that's what it is too. But yeah, that scene there, I'm like terrified of spiders, so that did not help me at all in that case. So that was bad. But the title of Disappointment Boulevard is so layered in this that it's almost a disservice to the film itself renaming it Beau Is Afraid. Because for me, Beau Is Afraid sounds like it's a comedic film, where Disappointment Boulevard, by the end of the film, in that third act, not only like he's afraid of disappointing his mother, but his life with every single experience that he has throughout this film is like one gigantic disappointment after another. So I think that the title would have just been way more impactful. So I was disappointed that that he decided to change it in that case.
No, but Kolby, getting into this kind of after we get the phone call where he's staying outside of his apartment where everyone's tearing it up, which I'm not gonna lie, that whole scene of him running across the street, getting the water, and when all those homeless people came into the apartment, my anxiety level was at an all-time high, because I'm one of those viewers.
Went through that door, bro.
I'm one of those people that I do have anxiety issues, but not to the extreme of Beau. But one of the things is just like, I just put myself in this position. Can you imagine someone just ransacking your house? I mean, they're pooping on the walls, tearing through his stuff. I mean, it got my anxiety level on a 10 when that scene happened. But the moment where he does find out, Kolby, that his mom supposedly died, and the way it went about it, the chandelier falling on her head. And shout out to the UPS driver. If there's any Barry fans out there, I don't know if you guys noticed, that was Bill Hader that played the UPS driver. He didn't fully turn around, but I love Bill Hader. But we have that moment, Kolby, when he finds out that his mom has died, pivoting over to, again, the guy runs out of the house, he's butt ass naked, he gets hit by the truck. And before we pivot into our couple, just that whole summary of the phone call, the bath scene, running in the street, being stabbed. I mean, just that whole sequence. What do you think about that, Kolby?
I forgot he got stabbed. I said it's the worst part of Mother! ! But like, I was still like invested, because because like what I did see from Beau is that, like, after being gaslit by his mom, there's a part of him that was also questioning, damn, am I kind of making an excuse to, like, well, we don't know, but like, she sells it so hard that he's almost convincing himself that, like, man, maybe I put myself in a position where I allowed somebody to steal my luggage, you know, and to steal my keys. Maybe it's because it's deep down, I wanted to be able to create an obstacle to get to my mom. That's how hard abusers can be, and narcissists, bro. When they they convince
you you're the bad guy.
You know. And it just sucks. So when all those things happen, like, literally, it's like, you know, what can go wrong will go wrong. Yeah. And that's what we see played out on screen. And to seal it off, my dude gets like accosted by the police, get a gun like thrown at him, and then gets hit by a truck hard.
Butt ass naked, I mind you.
Butt ass naked with the biggest ball in the world. Balls were so big.
It's pretty, and we'll get into why that was the case in a little bit. But Amanda, just your impressions again before we get into meeting our two couple here, Grace and Roger. What do you think about the kind of that buildup of, again, being locked out, staying overnight, getting that phone call, from the UPS driver, which again, that whole phone call to me was very tense filled because it was like, maybe because Bill hated the UPS driver. So, oh, well, maybe you called the wrong number. It's like, well, it's programmed in my phone. But then he's like, okay, maybe you're right. But then he does find out that he thinks his mom is dead, leading into him getting hit by that truck. What did you think about all that setup?
That entire thing at the apartment complex, I was invested. I was locked in. Every phone call that surrounded like his mother, and then like the call with the UPS driver was fantastic. I think Joaquin delivered those lines perfectly. Because there is like a comedic element that you have to play around with that phone call. It just doesn't make sense.
Wait, I just talked to her mom and her head is not, she doesn't have a face. Her head is like, yes, that whole conversation
made no sense at all. But it does set up like his journey quite well. I just, again, I think it was a bit excessive. What happens in the streets and like him getting hit and then the black screen. I think the black screen really just, like you said, it didn't say act 1, act 2, whatever, but like every time the black screen hit, I was like, this is how we're doing it. And like, it just clicked in my head. I was like, oh boy, we're going to get like 5 different stories here in this nightmare. So I think that first act was probably my favorite thing. And if I got another hour of that, consistently going to what happens at the end, I think it would have had a better payoff, in my opinion.
To your point, and as we pivot over to meeting our couple and we get a flashback sequence, I totally agree with you, and I think Mac agrees. We can all agree that the first half of this film probably the most engaging. Yes, it mixes reality and groundedness, but it does it in a way that it makes it you can actually grab onto and maybe relate to at some points. But as we get into and I'll be honest, as we get into this kind of second half, I was still kind of interested because I'm like, wait, there's something off about this couple. As we meet Grace and Roger, by 2 fantastic actors, Amy Ryan and Nathan Lane, they're really great. And they played it up really well as far as that. Can you trust them? Can you not trust them? But I want to start off with you, Kolby, as we have Beau hit by the car. He wakes up 2 days later. So obviously he's panicking. He's freaking out because was it a dream? My mom live or die? Who are you people? What is this thing on my ankle? What room am I in? As we meet this couple, we find out that their son has died, and they're essentially kind of using Beau as a replacement as their son, which was kind of awkward. We have the army guy who was a friend of, his name is Jeeves, who suffers from PTSD and is ready for action whenever called upon. And then we meet Tony Kolby, who was this film does, focus on mental health, and this family is just eating pills like it's candy. But Tony was something else, man. But Kolby, I want to get your thoughts on this kind of second portion of the film where we meet Grace and Roger and kind of pivoting over to that backstory of the flashback of young Beau meeting Elaine.
Yeah, throw this whole shit away. I love Nathan Lane. Like, once again, I'm a theater kid. I grew up on Nathan Lane, watching what he's done on Broadway, respecting some of the stuff he's done on the big screen, the Birdcage and stuff like that. Like, I love Nathan Lane, right? Great. But my goodness, none of this worked for me. And I think a part of why it didn't work is that the framing of the marketing for this film, I thought that this was the pinch. I thought that we were going to come into contact with a man who was just overwrought by fear and essentially abducted by a family that seems all to do well, but then has a sinister thing, which kind of does play out, but not at all. Because once again, I have no basis for what is reality and what isn't, that my judgment for who they are, what they're trying to do now is solely left up to everything else that happens in the film. So when that doesn't work, I can throw it all away because it doesn't work. And I don't like the way that Nathan Lane's character is written. I like what Amy Ryan's doing. I kind of get that. But particularly, I don't know, as a writer and director, what he was trying to do with that character. Where it's just like he's cringy for no reason. And this little girl, bro.
Tony.
Yeah. Like y'all are both like doctors or whatever. Like, tell your daughter, hey, by the way, we just hit this dude and we don't want to get sued or nothing like that. So we're just going to put him up for a little while, get him on his feet, and he's going to take your room, right? Or like, you got money, put him in a hotel. I don't know. Like, get another trailer. You got to do PTSD. Everything about it just felt like, this is the thing. The themes are clearly stated throughout the entirety of this film. And when we get to this part of the film, I'm like, this is where the symbolism doesn't work for me. I do not believe, you're telling me symbolism. but why? And then why particularly does it affect Beau? I don't think any of this affects Beau in any way.
Interesting. So Amanda, toss it to you off that point. And this is where my mind was at as I was watching the scene, and as we go to the end, correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, and also Kolby, wasn't and this is what I'm taking that Roger character, when we get, and not to fast forward too far ahead, but when he's in the basement looking at her accomplishments, and there's this like mural of her and her employees, we see a picture of Roger, which to me alludes that she hired them to kind of play into this weird situation, because there is a moment where she acknowledges Roger asked you to take you in the morning or take you the next day, and you settled with, oh, I'll just wait till later. So in my mind, Kolby, this is why it kind of does work with me, because it just plays into her insanity of how crazy she's willing to get. I thought this whole family was just hired. This whole situation was just make believe and stage to test Beau if he's willing to make the necessary steps.
I keep hearing that, but then, but how does that, like, Mona's clearly the obstacle to Beau. At every turn, Beau still wants to go.
Right.
You know, like, it's because he's not wanting to go vigorously enough. Like, I don't understand. Like,
she's petty. She's that petty, I guess.
She is clearly
awful.
Yeah. And again, my two, and man, I want to get your thoughts. My two things to kind of put in my mind that way is, we do find out that he did work for her. And that was a test. And then also with Amy's character, with Grace, she tells Beau to look on page or channel 78, showing that this has been recorded. So I'm like, was she, and again, this is where I kind of compared to Truman Show, was she trying to break she felt bad for him and she wanted this whole ruse to end? Or like, Amanda, let's say you about this whole, was it a ruse? Was it an act? What's up with this family?
I understand, because like, especially with seeing like Nathan Lane in the mural collage, whatever it was,
for her.
It made sense that she would hire them, but at the same time, like the whole part of his kid dying when he went overseas, it's like, this is a filler. So the maternal energy from Amy Ryan is basically trying to like protect him from everyone else. But then when he went to channel 78 and he fast forward,
he sees the
he sees multiple and he sees the future. So I'm like, because I don't want to get into this now, but I think that we're doing spoilers, and so I'm just like, I personally thought that he was dead from the beginning, and that these are like trials, like to see, like he could have been in purgatory the whole time, and his mom died and got there. I don't know, because looking back at it, that's what I felt.
Poem from Dante, okay,
right?
That's what I felt like, because if you're fast forwarding, that means you're
breaking reality. Yeah, you're in like an alternate reality. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's where like it wasn't grounded for me anymore. Like it was just off the freaking wall of obscurity. And I was like swimming in this nothingness with them. So I think that the way that they grounded it at the beginning didn't make sense all the way through after that, because now you're just on this ride with him and you don't know what's real, as Kolby has been saying this whole time. So I just think that entire middle portion did nothing whatsoever, because like as Kolby said, you could throw that away. Here's the third act of this film after he blocks out again, and we're starting something new to see if this sticks. So there are a lot of ideas floating around here with this, so it's like, it's hard. But that whole portion, I thought the maternal energy would be something, because she was helping him. So I don't know, because he was also rejecting that too.
Exactly. He wasn't accepting oh, this is easier. Like, you know, he's in pain. He got stabbed. He got hit by a car. And he still has this desire, which if everything's being monitored by his mom could clearly see, like, he is trying to get her. So is the mom only interceding when Amy Ryan and Nathan Lane get involved? Was she not aware of the shit show that was going on inside of his place?
Right.
Like, there's so many things that were in control. And what makes it furthermore is that, like, there's people that were inside of his apartment building that show up as other characters later in the film. So I'm like, if she's in on this entire thing, this is a test of Beau, like, I'm clearly seeing that, like, he's has a desire to get to you, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. And I think it goes back to, again, the groundedness and breaking reality and breaking the fourth wall, because like Amanda and what you're saying, Kolby, I think it would have played better for me if it was real. If it was, he just happened to come across this group, this family. They lost their son. This is a new son to kind of take in, and they're kind of making it very sinister and sick. But again, then the Easter eggs are kind of planted. Well, this was all fake. This is all a ruse. They were hired. But then did Tony commit suicide? We're drinking the pain, the PTSD with the army. Was Nathan even a real son? Like, so it blends. And then you ask yourself, did Mona, did she find, she found out that they lost a son. I'm going to give you, just as we find out with his maid, that she was willing to get her head chopped off because now her whole family's set up for the rest of life. So did Mona pay this family to just play this game, to test my son, and I'll pay you riches for the rest of your life. So again, it throws you off. Again, the frustrating.
Look at all the questions you just asked that we have no answers to. Like, look at that.
Which makes the second half, as Kolby and Amanda alluded to, it almost makes it weightless because it's not. And again, I love being questioned. Exception, was the spin still? All those ambiguous type of questions to be asked. But sometimes it hinders the film. It makes the film feel bloated or disjointed or convoluted or unnecessary when you have these questions that kind of makes your film kind of weightless when you don't have a definitiveness to that particular situation. So it's part of that experience, I guess, that he wanted us to be on, to have these frustrating conversations about what he was doing. But the flashback sequence, which I thought was actually pretty unique, because we get the younger version of Mona, Zoe Lester-Jones, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen her in a few, and I think she's a director herself.
She was good. I liked the cruise ship. I really enjoyed. I didn't know how, where it was why, right? It just kind of happens. But I appreciate it because it does it gives me an opportunity to be able to see more of the only relationship that I care about is the way that Beau relates to his mother.
Yep.
And that was absolutely fine. And then we get the children of the forest, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not fine anymore.
Before we get to those weird stage players, Amanda, your thoughts on the flashback? And I think the biggest takeaway, and this goes back to just tightening up your film, Ari, because the end result that we got in the flashback, at least for me, was Elaine. He's a virgin. He's been saving herself for him. Hence the not to get graphic, but the ball sack not being. He hasn't taken out his trash in a long time, so that explains kind of that, that particular decision. But that's what I took away from that. Is
did you call it a testicular decision?
Again, I took away Elaine. He's saving himself. He's a virgin, and the awkward relationship between him and his mom, when she's putting lotion on. Should I go to bed? Maybe I shouldn't. Should we walk on? It's just you, like Kolby said, you see it inside of that relationship. I don't think it had to be that long to kind of get to that end result. What do you think about the flashback there?
I really liked it. I think we needed more flashbacks. I think if you kind of piece together, because that kid really, he was good. I want to see more of the kid. And what was the point of him being on the poster? It just didn't feel like there was a point to that. If it was one or two flashbacks. But it was good. I wanted to see more of that, more of his relationship with Elaine. I thought would have been beneficial, especially going into the third act. Especially going into that one. But I think that the whole connection and relationship with the mother was the fact that everything that she said was set in stone. So he believed her, because obviously every kid's going to believe your parent at the end of the day. So he grew up in that environment and absolutely terrified of other people. So you kind of have that tension-filled relationship with the mother, which is really weird. And she was kind of jealous of Elaine. I felt that too. It's I brought you into this world. You're supposed to be attached to me, but also there's something more there, which was odd. It was just, it didn't fit. I think that extra thing just made it really weird, and I was turned off by it immediately. Because you can still do the codependency, you can still do all of that and have her influence his decisions without taking it that far. But obviously his sexual exploration wasn't there because of her. But I wish there were more flashbacks. I think even the bathtub nightmare that he continues to have was pieced together and added more every single time he blacked out, that we came out and we went back to that spot. So I thought that was helpful as well. But it's the in and out of reality that just it ruins what could have been perfect, I think.
Because, especially when we don't clearly identify what is reality and what isn't.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that we need to be spoon fed, because I've heard some people say, well, why does you're supposed to just know? No, I don't know. And then I don't know how it impacts this person or the other characters that come along. And we're theorizing so much. I feel like I'm doing too much of the heavy lifting that should come from direction and screenplay.
I agree with you, man. Because again, going back to just, and I thought Elaine was hilarious, by the way. And again, going back to the comedy, that's when the comedy really worked to me. The first time we meet her, or when she meets Beau, she's banging on someone's door, which is probably something that he's afraid of, especially built by his mom. There's a dead person in the pool, and his impression on her is her taking a photo, and a dead person's behind her and leaving that promise to stay with, stay with me or whatever. But that was interesting setup. But again, like Amanda said, I wish we would have spent more time with that relationship, because we see the conversation of her molding Beau of like what to look for in a woman, how important it is to find a partner, and just instilling that in his head, and just, sleeping in the same bed, which is nothing wrong with that. But just like, didn't they, he looked like he was like 13, 14. I don't know if it's appropriate to be sleeping with your mom in the same bed at that age. So it speaks to so much of the relationship. And I just wish we would have explored that relationship at that youth age, at a little bit more scenes there. But I will say, and then I even question if Elaine was hired at a young age, because we know Elaine worked for her as an adult. Did she work for her as a kid? Was she just meant to meet Beau on this vacation and to study him at that age? Again, so many questions. But now it's time to get to, I think will probably be, besides the ending, more or less the divisiveness as far as how they execute Beau and meeting orphans of the forest. Which pivots into Beau's dream. Amanda, starting with you. So Beau has left the family's house. He's on the run. Jeeves is chasing him, but he comes across this woman in the forest. She introduces him to the rest of the orphans, and they have these plays, and then they leave the forest. And we have this play, Amanda, and the play is essentially a young man who's on his own journey, but Beau at this point is so riddled with drugs and probably has a concussion, on a level 20. He imagines himself in this story, but he implements his memories and implements his life experiences in this story. And I'll just say now, even though I thought it was could have been handled better, that animation side of it and that story, that short story within the larger story, it was beautiful. Visually stunning. CGI mixed in with the practical effects. That's some of the best CGI and practicality that I've probably seen in a very long time. So just your thoughts on this whole sequence, Amanda, of the orphans, the forest, the dream sequence, him wanting to be a dad, and how all that played out.
It's fine. I think the animation, again, you can do things with animation that you can't do with live action. So again, I have an appreciation for that. I think this was basically him really wanting a better life for himself and trying not to believe the lies that his mother has kind of fed him his entire life. And I think that he was close to realizing that he could have had children. He could have had a family and all of that. Because water was really everywhere. It was either it was raining, he was in the ocean, there was water all around him. So I think
last
that
name
he
was Water Sun or something. Or I can't think.
I think So it was he was drowning constantly. And then this idea that he could have 3 sons and that his sons would be able to have sons. And it was all of that where I actually felt for him in that moment. But then aging him tripped me out. And then the guy talking to him in while the play was going on, and he thought it was his dad. And I was like, what? Literally, what are we doing here? Then I started to believe that I'm maybe it is his dad. Maybe this is a dream. It was just so many questions that I started.
Get the Rambo scene with Jeeves. It's jarring. It's jarring. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, he's safe with these children. She's giving him his tea. He's going to get better. I thought again, he's going to get better enough to the point to get to the funeral, to get to the viewing for his mother. It didn't happen, because then it just turned into madness yet again. He hits he faints her. He does the tasered or whatever it was, blacks out again. And it's this entire scene, if it was placed where the family was, I would have been okay with it. I would have felt it a bit more, because this is what he wants out of his life. And that is more concrete than having a family trying to tend to him after that. So if this was in place of that and we had a clean 3-act, I think that would have helped it much more.
Yeah, it was, and again, I think you alluded to it. It was the animation to me was gorgeous, and it's a great story because this is the point in Beau's life where he essentially is standing up for himself, or what if could have happened if he would have not been so dependent on his mom, but to his mom and having a family and all that. And then the kids bring up, well, Dad, if you've never, slept with anyone, how are we here? And that's when the dream kind of breaks out, because that's the reality. His mom frightened him, and just not to backtrack, but his whole fear throughout his life was because he was conceived, his dad died while having sex with Mona, and as he finished, he died. So she put it in his head, and it's not only sex, but if you ever pleasure yourself, and if you were to finish yourself while pleasuring, you could die. So that was this man has never had that level of pleasure that he was able to experience his entire life, because his mom literally told him at a young age, you're going to die if you end up pleasing yourself. So Kolby, your thoughts on the Forest People, the play, the animation, the dad scene, all ending up to just ending chaos with Jeeves killing all them and shooting himself, which was crazy, but it's just like, why are you taking us from 0 to 100 within these same scenes? It just didn't fit for me. But Kolby, your thoughts, man?
Yo, this was all pure nonsense. Like, I don't know how this was servicing the character and progressing his story forward. Yeah, there's things that maybe we're supposed to believe that he is understanding of himself of what could be, but I feel like how it was used didn't have an effect on Beau at all. At least like what I'm led to believe. So it was so hard. And like, I'm looking at my boy on my left, he's knocked out, completely asleep. I'm looking at my boy Raul to the right, and I'm just like, oh, what's going on? Like, help me. Because I'm in like, so I pictured this entire movie going experience. Like, I was on a boat, it got shipwrecked. Now I'm in a raft. I'm out the raft. I'm trying to get like a life raft, and I'm like, I'm just waiting in water at this point.
Fighting a shark and an octopus, and you got Aquaman on your left, and there's a meteorite hitting you.
That's what Beau is experiencing as well, right? So like at this point, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm growing tired, because my brain is racked with like, what am I supposed to be taking away from all of this? Because like there's this narration that's going on that's kind of coming from the play. So once again, I have no basis of what's reality. So it's going in and out. And at some point, he's like, "That's me." So I'm like, yo, this is some real cathartic stuff that's going on right now. Like, how is this about to change the rest of his life? And then it doesn't. So once again, it's all about payoff. So just knowing what happens like in the next hour and a half of this film, I'm just like, what was the entire point?
Yeah, again, the biggest thing that I liked about it was just the animation to me. I just can't speak highly enough about how I was just like swept up into that. It was almost like going to an art gallery and just seeing you find something that you really like and you stick onto. And that animation was that part of that was the best part of that for me. Like you said, Kolby, I don't really take anything out of that whole section of the film besides this is his dream that he wished could have come true. But unfortunately, at this point of his life, he's kind of ruin another life.
Why would he want that dream to come? There's so many better dreams out there. Why would he want that dream to come true?
Yeah. To have your family be taken away from you, your wife dies, the water takes over your house, you try to find a job, can't find a job, and literally 20 years have gone by. That's pretty good, Kolby. You're right, man. This man's nightmares,
that's what I'm saying.
Or dreams are nightmares, really, right? So, Beau. But as we pivot and kind of wrapping up to the third act, and again, guys, Amanda and Kolby, I appreciate y'all, man. If you guys appreciate the conversation, like, share, comment, subscribe to all these content creators because they're great. But getting into our last half of the film, Amanda, the whole thing, Jeeves, he runs off, he finds a hitchhiker, and he now is getting into his mother's funeral. He realizes he's kind of missed it. He is going through the house, they're playing the tapes. But then he sees the head or lack of head in the body, and he, later on he claims he knew it wasn't her because of the birthmark of his baby or the housekeeper. And he is, he falls asleep. And also, I guess to rewind, this is again going back to what we talked about earlier. When we go downstairs, we see all her accomplishments, that she has all these businesses. And I think, and again, I don't know if I want to rewatch it anytime soon, but I'm going to probably rewatch it one day just to kind of pick out Easter eggs. But I'm pretty sure, again, this is to me when the movie says to me that Mona set up almost everything. And again, this is where I feel like it was such a Truman Show movie, that she really has been in this man's life in every aspect of it. Because there's a picture when she was coming down the stairs of him in his apartment on the phone. So it kind of shows you that she was a part of it since the beginning. And then there's like this, she buys real estate. And I think one of the buildings was the building that Beau lived in. And it was almost like a building that she created to build his fear. And then we see him as a kid taking the pills, which to me seems to be, ever since Beau was a kid, he's a test dummy. He's a lab rat that she's tried out the drugs on him. She puts him in this environment to see if he's resilient or if he can survive the world. She sets up these relationships. So to me, this is when the film was just like the old aha moment that Mona has literally, in every aspect of his life, she has been monitoring him and studying him and using her son as a product. But I could be wrong. But as that happens, Elaine pops up and listen, I love when she comes up and her immediate thing is, time to have sex. It's time for Beau to become a man, I guess. And Amanda, this is what I want you to, obviously talking about all this stuff I just mentioned, but the sex scene, which was the most funny and one of the more awkward sex scenes I've seen in a long time. Luckily, I wasn't in a theater with my two best friends like Kolby. There was like 3 people in the theater and we were spread apart. Thank you, Kolby. Thank you. Perfect. When that song comes on, Amanda, I don't normally like do any visceral moments or like laugh out loud in the middle of a movie because I like to respect my other people around. I couldn't help but to laugh because that was just so damn funny. The needle drop was great. A lot I've thrown at you, Amanda. But before we get Mona coming in, what did you think about that whole setup of the funeral, the downstairs of like revealing that she might have been a part of it all since the beginning to meeting Elaine in the sex scene?
Really liked that we got to see all of that he's kind of seeing his mother and who she is for the very first time, because I don't think he knew that she did any of that apart from him like take like the pictures and the posters that we saw. Right. He didn't acknowledge the fact that he was a product for her and that she tried so many things on him. And it was a weird relationship from the very beginning, but this ties into the ending where I don't want to get too far ahead, so I'll speak on it later. But I'll get into the sex scene. That was awkward as hell, number one. Number two, I was so done with this movie that I really wanted him to die in that very moment. I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Literally just have him die. And I'm like, you know what? This is Disappointment Boulevard. And just like everything his mom said was true and it would be devastating and blah, blah, blah. Like I just wanted that to happen. Then the opposite happened. And that really, like, it struck me because I didn't expect Ari Aster to take it as far as he did in that case, because it's not a pretty sight. And even when, you know, she does die like on top of him after herself, like after she finishes, he's fine, which I'm like, ugh. I was like, okay, cool, he's fine. But she dies after she finishes. Like it felt like such a mannequin afterwards, and like he throws her off, and I was just sitting there like it was too much in that moment. And then obviously you find out you know, afterwards, am I allowed to segue into that? I can say okay. That his mother is in fact alive, right? And she comes out of the shadows like, I haven't even been dead, but like 5 minutes and you're like having sex on my bed. And I was like, what is this? Right. And then they open the doors and there's like a security guard and another maid that come in and like pick up Elaine. That's what I couldn't stomach. I was like, this was not that it was graphic, but for me, it's like, this is what you decided to do with that very moment. And it kind of like struck me as like, I don't know how well I'm taking this, seeing that visually as like a woman as a mannequin that he did love. And then like that whole situation happened. And it was like, we're just disposing her for, you know, as a story, as a plot device, basically. We're just disposing her. We don't need her anymore. So I thought that was kind of like, like I got grossed out by that. But then the mother coming out, Patti LuPone's a genius. Don't get me wrong. I think she's fantastic. But if she came out like, if this whole thing was earlier in the film and we got more of Patti LuPone, you know, toying with him, taunting him, giving that performance, I would have liked it way more because she made the ending of this film. And she was like the final puzzle piece to actually be like, you know what? this is what's it's being grounded once again in this case. So I think that there's so much excess and so much obscurity that there's certain things that just didn't work whatsoever in moving the story forward and moving him forward. So yeah, that whole sex scene just didn't. I wanted him to die. Long story short, I just wanted him to die in that moment. Sorry, I'm just saying.
I love the word that you used, excess. At this point, we're 2+ hours into the film, and it just feels like reflecting back, there's a good movie in here, but there's so much excess that's masking like genius shit that could have been at work. Like if I wanted to explore the trauma of a man because of the unhealthy relationship between he and his mother, there's so much that I could have taken away and removed that doesn't have to cloud the way, because even by this point, I don't believe anything is changing the way Beau thinks about his mother or himself. It's just things happening to him continuously. So it feels very much redundant at this point, where it's just like more bad is happening, more bad is happening, more bad is happening. Yet I don't see him ever being changed by the bad, for good or for worst. You know, it's like, it's just, he just has to accept that these uncanny things are happening, and it's further steeped in surrealism that it loses the weight of its effectiveness. Because like, I don't know what the stakes are, because if he's truly dead, then all of this is for naught. If she's truly dead, then I don't know what we're doing here. But if she's pulling the strings from behind, we have no idea when it's happening. Is she pulling the strings inside of his head because she's now a specter of all the bad manifestations of who she actually is? So maybe this is all in his head. Maybe he's projecting an evil mother when she really isn't. I'm so confused. Don't get me wrong. Great needle job. I love Parker Posey and her poses. But then again, I'm like, okay, what are we supposed to take from that from the audience? That specific scene. It's just there to be there because it can be there. And it does feel very, like, it makes her very disposable. And I don't know what that lesson was supposed to be, teach me or Beau. And then I'm questioning everything that happens, because then immediately afterwards, we go into the attic.
Oh, well, yeah, we got a special section for that. Which was that, but to address you guys' comments, I definitely agree with you guys, especially, I think to your point, Amanda, I really enjoy it. It's a small moment of hope where they have a moment to connect, where he's like, it's me, it's Beau. And it's like, it was like the most earnest, kind of more romantic angle that this film is kind of offer, and then immediately is kind of undercut by a ridiculous and somewhat funny scene. But then again, like you said, the handling of the disposal of the character was could have been a little bit more tasteful, to say the least. But then we kind of to pivot into this third act, y'all, and starting with you, Kolby. Again, she's coming out from the shadows. Mona, she's alive this whole time, and I think what would almost save, I guess, to backtrack a little bit, almost save me in that scene is going back to the title, Beau Is Afraid. He was afraid of sex his whole life, and he finally experienced it. And the fear that he had of him dying has now been literally put into someone else's manifestation of her dying during the moment. So it kind of heightens it. It even makes his reality more true, because what his biggest fear was dying and having sex, and it ended up happening, but not to him, but someone else. So it plays into his whole anxiety of it all. His mom instilled in him. But getting into Mona, who I think stole the third act. She saved the third act for me, because it is so ridiculous and just kind of makes the rest of the film kind of weightless. But her performance was just so strong and so demanding. And it's rare to see. Again, we talked about how great Joaquin Phoenix is. You know, I don't want to say she outclassed him, but just from a character standpoint, because at this point, Beau has just been so beaten down and just so in shock, and she's just so heightened. And I'm just like, she is just eating all this up. But taking it over to you, Kolby, we get the reveal. We go up and find out that the therapist has been in it the whole time. She's taped all their sessions, and it symbolizes, or it kind of summarizes, that Beau blames everything on his mom, which is, I think, something that we can all kind of at least understand or relate to, that it is a conversation that a lot of people has. You know, oh, I'm this way because of my mom. I'm this way because of my dad. Or, not to get too dark, but we have all those conversations about in the U.S. in particular with gun control, and we have all these tragedies of school shootings, and you know, the mental health is like the last thing that people bring up. It's more or less, well, where were the parents and this, and people blame parents for everything that their kids end up being, which I think there is a certain leash you can have of that, but at some point you as an individual have to grow up, be your own individual
actions.
person, and take accountability for your own actions. So that moment to me was really like, okay, I like where they're going there. But Kolby, your thoughts on just all this reveal here and the therapist, the Beau learns about, all the stuff that's going on, leading into the penis and the dad and the closet and being in the attic, man. Take it away, Kolby.
So I thought I missed something because like as Patti LuPone is like walking through her bedroom and then through the bathroom and the closet, because like we've gone back several times to that bathroom scene.
Right.
So I'm like, what is this relevance? What traumatic event happened as a child that he hasn't been able to escape from? And I feel like all the previous things, I don't think the foreshadowing was, because at first I thought like she was insinuating that like he had a brother that didn't work out.
I have that in my notes, and I was going to bring it up here that it was a brother, and the dad was the penis. Is that where am I reading into that wrong?
Yeah.
So I thought when she reveals, like, if you don't blah 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 blah, she pulls down the thing and traps him. I'm like, oh, did she trap the brother who was like the bad one?
Yeah,
right. Who was like constantly doing that.
I think we're in the same wavelength. Yeah,
it's the father, but then there's this dick monster in the corner.
Yeah,
and but like, is the father's the dick monster, or is the father? The thing is, because there was a small little person there, so I'm like, wait, if that's the dad, is the dick monster just like this? This
like symbolizing the.
And then the dick monster had like 10 like these things like an alien, right? And then he kills Jeeves. Jeeves is still.
That I didn't get.
Himself in the neck and the head and still alive. That
like,
no
where's
sense.
he running?
He shot himself through the collar. Like, I don't know, bro.
But
then again, if this is all in his head, then we don't need to apply the rules of reality. But then if we don't need to apply the rules of the reality,
I didn't get that. I thought his dad was up there for a split second, like the person that you saw, and it wasn't the dick. But then on top of that, I'm like, wait a minute. If Beau's so terrified of that freaking attic that he keeps replaying it, what if he's in the attic?
Yes.
And I was like, it's him the whole time. And she trapped him up there because there were things in the attic and in the house that he was like living through, like obviously his own apartment. And then he saw different things. And I'm just like, but that also doesn't make sense because I was lost. When I mean lost, I was lost. Like I had no idea at that point, but that's what I thought. If Beau was up there, I don't know.
The entire time, what I'm waiting for is the reveal, like what we get in Moon Knight. Essentially, we get a reveal that everything that we see has a mirror image of what actually happens in real life. And does every storyteller need to like give that? I don't think so. But when it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then we rely on that because essentially Beau, is, he's a, what's the word? An unreliable narrator. Right. But then the hardest part when I get to this point, I'm just like, okay, so I feel like I've seen this movie before and it had Joaquin Phoenix in it and it's called Joker and the unhealthy relationship that he had with society and his mother. And we're essentially doing this. That movie's way better. It's way better. Like, and I have all these other questions, and I'm just like, and I feel bad because like I really love Ari Aster, but like at this point of the film, and we still got 30-something minutes to go.
Yeah,
I'm just
which is where we're. Yes. So to address that, and let us know in the comments for you who all are watching this. I did feel as though to Kolby and Amanda's, I interpreted as yes, Beau had a twin brother, and his brother was the one that was put up in the attic. Because we revisit that flashback for one last time. And when she says it's not a nightmare, it's a memory you had. We saw young Beau, our Beau, Joaquin Phoenix. He was the one in the tub. Like, are you going to say anything? And he's like, no, so he's complicit. But the other brother who has spoken up against Mona, she locked him in the attic for all those years. So, and then the father is the penis. Like she saw that manifestation of like, he was just there to serve one thing, which I think she says earlier, I just want to have kids. And all she saw from the dad is just a means to have kids. And that's all she saw him as is that versus like an actual person with 2 arms and 2 legs and a head. So that's how I kind of interpret it, which to Kobe points, it brings us into just wrapping up this chaotic third act, which to me, I'll just go ahead and say this is where the film just completely just falls apart because it makes everything else just seem so pointless. Again, I love what Patti does, but we have Beau finally stepping up for himself. He strangles his mom, doesn't kill her, but she passes out. He leaves the crime scene, and goes on this boat. Again, Amanda alluded to it, the water being a big symbolism. We go on this kind of almost, I don't know if it was recreating his birth, essentially. We go in this stadium of being he's on trial if he's a shitty son or not. And we're just watching her just lay. And prior to that, she was laying into him this whole third act of like how bad he was, how terrible he is. You should have came. You should have came when I called you the first time, and all the stuff she did, the birthday gift, giving her the same gift 2 years in a row. Just a bad son. What's the message in that? What are you trying to tell us? Like that was so frustrating. But Amanda, we get to this trial sequence. The doctor / family lawyer is giving his accounts. We have Beau's defense telling him, his side of the story. And ultimately, Amanda, it's decided that Beau is just a shitty son, and the boat explodes. He drowns. It's almost like I brought you into this world. I can take you out. And it reverses again how we open the film with him being born and essentially going back and being unborn, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. But Amanda, take it away. What did you think about this final and third bombastic, chaotic, crazy third act of the film?
This is where I thought that he was in purgatory, because it just makes the most sense where he's on trial for all of his actions. Then he gets to speak out and all of that. And then he dies at the end of this. So he's going to hell, given the fact that his mother is like, well, you did X, Y, and Z to me. This is why you're a terrible son. So it essentially feels like that's where it's heading. So then everything that happens to him prior to this trial isn't real whatsoever. And that's why I can't believe anything that happens before this. And that's why it loses all its how can I put it? It loses all of its, I guess, accountability in the fact that you're trying to make it a psychological thriller. But you're missing the fact that we can connect with Beau. Like, for me, wanting him to die in the third act already, I could care less about what happens to him at that point. So I just think that the believability was lost. And if people do watch this film from the beginning, again, I would be mindful of the fact that none of it's real from the very beginning, and that he's going through trials that would essentially put him in hell because his mother's been torturing him his entire life. That's the only way that I can look at it now. It's the way I've interpreted it. Because that's the only way it makes sense in my brain with everything that happened.
And Kobe, before I talk to you, and that's where it kind of, again, it loses so much weight for me in this third act, is because we're focusing so much on Mona, but it was from Beau's perspective this whole film. But now you're telling me that it was Mona from why even have kids, right? I guess that's a big question. Is why does she even want to have kids if we find out that she's been recording his life and his decisions his whole life? They go to the mall. Why did you hide from your mom to make her scared? She broke her leg. It's so now Mona's the star, and we're supposed to feel bad for Mona, but we spent 2.5 hours having empathy and sympathy for Beau, but now we find out that he's a terrible son. It's just so backward storytelling to me, Kobe. But your thoughts on this third act, man? Again, we find out he's been recorded his whole life. Mona feels like he's a terrible son. He ultimately loses his defense attorney and has to fend for himself. He ultimately accepts his fate, which is dying, and in the film, and we have the credits. And I thought, Kobe, take it away, bro. Take it away.
Yeah. So at this point, the film lost me an hour beforehand, right? But I'm just trying to say, maybe there's got to be something redeeming that's going on, and the LuPone performance is strong, even though
I said that saved it. That's the only thing.
But it's the character motivation that just doesn't work for me, because I'm big about perspective. And if I'm unsure if this is from Mona's perspective or from Beau's perspective, but we have no idea where it's coming from, because if we believe that the entirety of this film is inside of his head, when does he question what he's coming to grips with? Is he just in full accept? The trauma was so much from his mother that he has convinced himself that he's a shitty son, but he never says that to himself.
Die for that? Yeah.
He never said. I'm saying
Right.
he never says that to
Never
himself.
accept that. Yeah.
So is him dying in his head? If this is all in his head, when did he die? Like, I'm so lost, and all of the pillars of what built up the world continually with each act get taken down. I no longer have any like believability to what the goal. Like the exterior goal was clear for Beau to be able to get back to his mom because he felt the guilt of not being there because she died.
Right.
You know, and he was being impressed upon by the lawyer that was important for him to be there. And there was these active obstacles that he had to overcome. And along the way, there was questions of his own character and ethics that he was battling, but in no way does he ever say to himself, no, I've got to get there. And I recognize that I'm not always strong, but I really am strong. He doesn't go through any of that.
Exactly.
So now I don't believe this character. I don't believe the conflict because the conflict feels contrived. So she's hired all these people when we see, along with the journey, active obstacles that she's created for him to still pursue her.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah, man.
And I'm just, and like, honestly, if I didn't have any reverence for Ari Aster, how much I loved Midsommar, like, I, as a film critic, responsibility to like stick to the end. But like, there was times I honestly just wanted to check out and just leave.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm like, I stuck out all the way through. And then when ultimately he dies, and there's people that are like, no, he does come to a realization, like, you know, and you can see it on his face. I think essentially just saying like, you know what, whatever, that's not realization for me. Like, and I'm just like, I didn't need 3 hours to experience this. So once again, this is the least payoff I've ever had in a movie. You know, and that's what, like, honestly, that's what that is what ignited this fiery. The moment that the credits came up on screen, I stood up and I said, I don't want to hear a single clap for this. I just don't. And
it's tough, man. I'm telling you, because again, like as we've said at the very beginning of the stream, how we do a kind of, so look, the fact that there's a studio by A24, which is one of my favorite studios out there, that allowed Ari Asher to come into this pitch meeting and say, hey guys, I got this movie I've been cooking up. And I don't think he gets this movie made without Hereditary and Midsommar. Like, this is not a movie you make out of the first gate because it's never being made. So there is a moment of me, and going back to just being a fan of film and a critic, that likes the idea that a studio will allow someone to put this out there, regardless of, you know, not sticking to landing. The fact that they're taking risk makes me happy as a film goer, because we always talk about sequels, requels, reboots, IPs, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars. Where's originality? We have it right here with this film. So that side of me is like, it gives me hope for the movies moving forward. We can get, even if it doesn't turn out well, that there is a studio that's at least allowing people to take risk. And that it was, unfortunately, it doesn't stick the landing. Amanda, any final thoughts from you on this experience? On, I guess, because I've seen some things online that some people are saying this is a career killer. This is irredeemable. He can't come back for that. I don't think that's the case. I think we're going to see Ari Asher making a film in a couple of years and probably get back on track and make a straight up horror, or maybe he plays another genre. We'll see. I don't think this is going to end his career.
No.
But what say you, Amanda, as far as just final overall thoughts? And I guess, what would you like to see Ari Aster do next? We have the cult movie with the witches and the mother and son dynamic, and the mother and more tragedy from one generation to the next. We have a codependent relationship in Midsommar of someone finding himself by the end of the film. And now we have a very toxic relationship between the mother and the son, who manipulates him and gaslights him and makes him out to be, as we talked about at the beginning, makes him out to be the villain at the end.
Doesn't seem like he likes parents a lot in his movies, huh?
Listen, Kobe, I need that biopic of Ari Aster of like, what has my man suffered through? What has he, who hurt you, Ari, is the question I have. But Amanda, final thoughts in Mr. Ari Aster's next project. What would you like to see?
I think he needs to ease up on the psychological horror. I think this man needs to do a comedy, because there's some funny beats in all three of his films. So I think if he kind of like simplifies a storyline, uses that dark humor, I think that would be kind of a pivot and a bit refreshing, because all three of his films are very heavy, this being the heaviest to process, because it's so complex. I do like him. I think he's great, as you said, like, without Hereditary and Midsommar, this movie wouldn't have been made. Apparently he had this in the works for 10 years. So if his name like didn't do it, it's been 10 years. That's why I'm saying
this was a studio project that no one picked up. Which you can't find actually, because the main actor unfortunately passed away. So they took it off and also too, I think the short gives away a lot of beats in this film, so that he didn't want to spoil the movie. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
No, it's okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. But I do like that he's taking risks. I think the best word to describe Beau Is Afraid is that it's very ambitious. It's an ambitious film. It's overly like bloated. There's a lot of excess that could have been cut down, but it is an experience that we've been saying over and over again throughout this entire review. So if you go in blind, I think that's the best way to approach this. Don't watch any trailers. Go in if you want. But I'm excited for his work. I think we need more originality, and that's something that we've all been looking for in the mess that is requels, like you said, Elliot. So yeah, I like him. I like him as a director. I like him as a filmmaker. But let's hit those comedies. Let's liven things up a bit in Departure, because I think this is going to be like a cute little horror trilogy. Look what I said.
Cute little horror trilogy. Yeah, that is the cutest horror trilogy of all time.
So Amanda. Cute. But he covered so much in those three that I think let's depart from this genre. Make something new. So yeah.
Kobe, what say you, man? Any final thoughts on this film? What would you maybe want to see Ari Asher do next? And I guess, just your commentary on someone taking risk and filmmaking moving forward. And if Ari Aster after Beau Is Afraid is someone that you still get excited for, that you, when you see his next project announced, you're like, I'm excited, or like, after Beau Is Afraid, I'll wait till that comes out on, on streaming. What say you, Kobe?
Yeah, so like this is definitely one of the more frustrating movie-going experiences that I've ever had. I think it is one of the worst films I've ever watched, but not necessarily because it's an all-out bad film. It's just my level of investment and also like the length. I'm not the guy that says like initially like the length of a film is gonna like, I'm just gonna crap on it. Like, no, it's not that. But when it completely doesn't pay off, and I feel that wasted, because like on top of the 3-hour runtime, I do have 25 minutes of this was all for naught. And I don't I feel like this is one of those films, like I don't have a desire to watch for a second time. I don't want to
one and done.
The people that have watched this thing 3 times or whatever, like, more power to you. I can't recommend it to folks. But I absolutely will watch whatever he has next. Like what he was able to give me through Midsommar, he's not a one-hit wonder. Like I said, I really enjoyed the first part to Hereditary, and it's not like the second part was bad. I just felt like it wasn't earned. But like I was one from start to finish with Midsommar. But I think it's because of the direction, the writing, and as well as the performances. Like what we got, from Florence Pugh, was it Jack? Was it
I know you're talking about,
Jack Rader, something like that. But like they were both really, really good, and it just like that film worked on me so much. And once again, the performances in here are strong, even despite the writing. But like I can get like everybody's entitled to a bad film. The crazy thing, and I think what's like kind of like gone into the division is that what I don't want to see is that we have this penchant of allowing leashes to certain storytellers than we do others. Because like I keep saying, oh, this is so audacious. This is so wild. This is what we need. But like at that point, like as a critic, am I not suing my barometer for how I critique films where I give audaciousness to one director but not another? And I feel like we're treading a really interesting line. Because like, and if somebody can sit here like make an argument for this that like really understands that, maybe like I'll change my stance. But like, there's some things in here that I feel like are indefensible. And as a person who was in the room when, I love how everybody now is using the hashtag career killer. Shout out to Eric Weber. Yes, that was him. Somebody illegally recorded a conversation that Eric Weber and I were having in a movie theater. So if you heard that audio, that is me on the other end. And Eric Weber is over here saying, Kobe, this, and I'm like, no, it's not. Number one, he's a guy. That motherfucker ain't going nowhere. All right. His privilege will keep his career afloat, and everybody's entitled to a bad film. I loved Jordan Peele's Us. I know it was not everyone's cup of tea. And I do not believe that a project that is a quote unquote miss for some should be labeled as a career killer. Like, this didn't work, but he's already got something in the works. So take this, he'll learn from it. He recognizes and he knew that this is going to be a very divisive film.
100%. And he's embracing it too. I've seen some jokes. He's like, I hope people hate, or not to that extent, but he's hoping that people have this type of reaction to not.
And maybe that's convenient, right? To be able to do that. But then also, this is still art. You know, there's no formula. There's no magic science. There are things that do have objective standards. And I think he purposely wanted to deviate from a lot of those things. He said that this is his most personal. It's up for us to be able to dissect what that is. I do want to hear some of the. Amanda, did you get a chance to hear the Q&A that he had in I think in Canada?
I did. Yeah, I did. And he didn't really have nothing. He gave nothing.
Gosh.
I'm serious. No, because like he's sitting there and the moderator was like he was asking him, he's like, well, what did you why did you do this in the film, or what made you do certain things, make certain decisions? And he's like, well, it's how you interpret it.
You, right?
It's like, did you purposely do this? I don't know. Like it was answers like that, but I'm like, you know what?
Super vague.
I appreciate the shit out of him for even doing that, because you know what? Whatever he thinks is what he thinks. He's gonna visually do that for us as a director and as a writer. Like his thoughts are on the page, and then he puts it out there for us. So it's like whatever he intended is not going to be what we're going to analyze or what exactly. So I appreciate that, because you can always talk about the cinematography and the script and you can talk about that, but like it's subjective at the end of the day. So I appreciate what he said.
And that's my final thoughts on it. Is again, I'll go back to just, I appreciate the artists of filmmaking. And that is, he's not holding our hands, as Kolby said many times. He's not spoon feeding us. This is what's happening, right? It is, I think films, not all films, right? But some films, I think we need to be challenged as audiences and not just, we always have these quotes, or at least I say it every now and then, where it's like, hey, I shut the brain off and just watch what's going on screen. And some films have that type of a leash to it, but some films do want to challenge his audience. To Kolby's point, I think certain runtimes, they know it's a challenge. 3 hours of a film is whether it's Avengers or Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, people know that it's going to be a certain, just to get people in theaters, especially in today's society of our short attention spans and streaming and all that stuff. So it is a challenge just to get you in the theater first off, and then to go on this journey, something else of a whole. So I am excited to see what he does next, as Amanda said, whether it's a comedy, whether it's a full-length animated film about, I don't know, a healthy relationship, Ari Aster. Can we get a healthy relationship between a mother and a son, or the dad and son? A good relationship. Can we see if is he capable of that, guys? Is the question I have. But I'm excited to see what he does next. And while this was on my most anticipated films of the year, and I want to say it's the most disappointing because I haven't seen the rest of the films on my list, but I am slightly disappointed that didn't really stick the landing at the end of the day. But I am at least happy that there's still art being made that can challenge its audience and question what was real, what was fake, was she hired, was it, all that stuff that we talked about throughout the stream. It is, I guess, as a film lover, it's nice to have those. And I want more. I want more complete stories with more definitiveness and cohesiveness, but I do like to be challenged. And I think Ari Asher accomplished that. So, man, Kolby, Amanda, I knew when I reached out, I'm like, this is going to be fun. This is going to be so much fun. Number one, because you guys are both incredible content creators and very thoughtful in your opinions on things, but also you guys are just dope people. So I knew this was going to be a fun conversation on that level, on top of the analytical side of it, and dissecting it and getting you guys' thoughts. So I'm super appreciative. We have so many movies to come out the rest of this year, and I would love to link up with both of you all to talk about some more maybe challenging films, some more fun films, lighthearted films, and everything in between. So you guys are great. Again, everyone watching this, check them out. The links are in the description. Subscribe, follow them, all that good stuff. And I'm going to have you guys outro out and start with you, Amanda. Let the people know where they can find you. What do you have next? And what are you excited for next? Again, we're only 4 months into the year. We got, 8 more months of Dune 2s and Barbie and Oppenheimer. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to. So what are you excited for? And again, where can people find you?
Yeah, well, this was always fun. Thank you so much for having me, Elliot. It's always a good time. And Kobe, like all of these conversations, I love having them, especially in depth like this for Beau Is Afraid, because it's rare. So I'm really happy about that. What I have next, I have Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, my review up on my YouTube, Candid Cinema, and the links are below. That was really great. I watched Ghosted too today, and that was a movie on Apple TV Plus, and Chris Evans is very charming, so like that's the best thing that I can say about that film. But I'm just really happy that we're having more original content. I think that's what's really getting to me, and television's really good too. So there's so much stuff. Obviously, I'm excited for Barbie. I've been working with Maud Garrett on her new book club, Maud's Book Club. It's called. I've been writing for her and reading more books. So there's plenty of adaptations that I'm really excited for, including Oppenheimer, which I want to read, but like it's a big book, and hopefully Nolan does that movie well. But I'm excited for that. I have Guardians very soon, which I'm pretty sure we're all going to be talking about. And who isn't excited for Barbie? I'm so excited for Barbie. So there are so many things. And Mission Impossible 7. I can't forget that one. My heart.
Yes.
We got that going. July is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be great. We're going to be living at the theater. But yeah, you guys can always follow me over at AMX ND Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. You can check out my website, Candid X Cinema, and my YouTube, Candid Cinema. It has been a blast with you guys, and I'm really happy we did this.
Awesome. I'm so appreciative, Amanda, and super excited to see your outlets continue to grow and your opinions to get out there more, because you got some great stuff to be said. And I'm super excited to see what you got up for the future of your content. So, Kobe, my man, like I said up top, man, it's been a minute. We got to do this again. So excited to be able to chop it up with you today and get your thoughts on this very divisive film. But I wanted to let the people know at home, Kobe, where they can find you, what's the next thing you got lined up for people, and then what are you excited to see for the rest of this year? Oh, I think you muted there, Kobe.
I'm always appreciative of being on the platform. It's always great chopping up with you, and as well with like the different guests we have on here. And I got my homegirl Amanda on. It's great because like I reflect back, and like I've been doing this for several years. You guys have like kind of come along. It's like, damn, like we've known each other for like 3, 4, 5 years almost at this point. And it's like really cool that like we're still doing it and committed because we love movies. And I'm so happy that after the pandemic, movies seem to be really like coming back. This feels a lot like what 2018 and 2019 was, and I'm excited. I mean, the movie calendar is full, and your boy is doing his best to try to catch up. I just relaunched the KOLBY Told Me podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts, but primarily on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Yeah, so like, subscribe, comment, and share. I'll be dropping the next episode for reviews for Renfield and The Pope's Exorcist, and then getting revved up to be able to try to be committed and consistent to weekly content of bite-sized micropods, 15 minutes or less, to be able to add into your menus of all the different content that you guys can be able to consume. And when I can find myself a technical producer, I will get on YouTube, because that's what we have to be able to do. But I'm excited for everything, man. I'm going to watch everything. I'm so excited to be able to try to get a chance to watch Guardians of the Galaxy 3 next week. And at some point, I'll be doing my deep dive into the entirety of the MCU, because your boy has a lot of opinions on this most recent phase and recent saga. But I want everybody to be able to be around to be able to hear it. And you can find me. I'm on all the socials at KOLBY Told Me. That's KOLBY me on Twitter and IG. And when they ask you where you heard it from, just tell them KOLBY told me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So excited to see all that great stuff that you got lined up for him, Kobe. I know it's going to be fire. Same with you, Amanda. So again, I'm super thankful for you guys' time. Very interesting film to talk about. And again, we got to do this more often. But listen, everyone at home, if you have stuck around to this point from our spoiler-free portion, all the way breaking it down to the ending, to this very outro, we really appreciate you. If you enjoyed the conversation, again, just a reminder before you all leave the video, hit the thumbs up, hit the share button. Also, leave your thoughts in the comments of everything we discuss, your interpretation, what worked, your deeper meanings, and all that good stuff that we talked about. Let us know in the comments. And again, not only for myself of subscribing to the channel, but again, Amanda and Kobe, information in the description. Click it. Check out their content 50,000 times on replay. Subscribe, follow them, all that good stuff. So with that being said, you guys have been awesome. Be safe, and we will catch you guys on the next video.